Hi, everybody. It's Lorina and Kimmie here. We're doing spooky chats today, spooky spirit chats. Do you want to go
Perfect.
ahead and introduce yourself and then I will?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Kimmie. I do intuitive crypto intuition readings with Miss Lorina, Bible practitioner, acupuncturist, healing medium, and that's
A psychic medium, energy healer, spiritual mentor, and the mystical expert. Teacher, all that good stuff. All wrapped up into the mystical. Love that. And so today we're going to do some ghost stories and maybe some stuff about poltergeist and all that fun stuff. Do you have a story you want to start with or should I?
we were talking about doing poltergeist, but the only time I've ever had, I've seen ghosts multiple times, but the physicality experience I had was when I was I don't know if I ever told this story with you before, but
Let's hear
when
it.
I was at Southern Illinois,
Mhm.
Carbondale, where our friend lives now, we rented a house my junior year near the strip downtown. We wanted to live close enough to walk to school, but then live where you can go out and have cocktails. When it wasn't
Yeah.
cocktails back then, it was just beer. But we lived in this bigger, older house, and there was 5 girls. Some of us had to double up on rooms. I doubled up in a room with a friend from high school. We went to college together. I remember we were in the room, and my friend was getting up to go somewhere. We were having to heat a talk. Um, she was Italian, so we were talking, and then all of a sudden, something flew off. There was a table, knickknack. Something flew off. I
Wow.
mean, we were not near it at all, and it moved. It didn't drop. It went
Oh, wow.
sideways, and we just kind of looked at each other, and we were like, "Okay, let's pretend like that wasn't weird." It was so scary. That was the same house that it had a lock on the bedroom, so I used to lock the door when I would sleep because people were in and out, and sometimes the doors were open and stuff. I locked the door, and I remember going to sleep with the light off. When I woke up in the middle of the night, the light was on. I
Mm.
thought she was home. So
Oh,
something had turned on the light in the room.
wow.
Creepy. But
Yeah.
that was the physical stuff I've experienced.
Oh. I had an apartment when I had started studying mediumship. The lights would turn on and off a lot. I always thought, oh, that's my sister Jana visiting. And it never freaked me out for some reason. Who knows for sure? But that was my assumption. And I did live in a haunted apartment for a while in Brooklyn. I only lived there for 4 months, but it was definitely haunted.
Okay.
And that's when I first started chanting Nam Myoho Renge Kyo and really getting into meditation in a way that I knew how to do it.
Yeah.
There was a guy who died in that apartment, and that's the first time I really became aware that there are spirits around me. I had felt them on occasion, but when I was chanting, it was like, oh, there's someone here, and it's a man. Whenever Maureen, my roommate, would bring a guy over after the guy left, so it could have been when Maureen was there or not, but if the
Yeah.
guy was in the place, there was activity after that. I woke up in the middle of the night once she'd gone out with him on a date, but he
Yeah.
had been there earlier. I heard this voice go, something is here. Literally outside of my head, something's here. And I sat up out of bed, like, yeah. I saw a bag swinging on a hook like this.
Uh huh.
And so I stopped it. And then I was terrified. As he came home about 10 minutes after that, I was so happy that someone else was in the place. The next morning, she's like, Lorena, why is there this stuff all over the floor? The thing that I had missed is there were a whole bunch of books and knickknacks that were on the shelves that were scattered. I just saw the bag. It happened before I heard that voice say something is here. But I got a warning, so that's good.
See, that's the point where you go. I felt with the house we lived in, it had somebody that lived there that was still there. They
Oh,
were
yeah.
passed over. That's what it felt like to me. But
Yeah.
with what happened to you, do you feel like your sister was probably the one turning on the lights?
Uh-huh.
But what do you feel like that was? Because that sounds
Oh,
more menacing.
Well, I think it was the guy who died. I think there was a guy who died in that apartment, and I think he got upset whenever she brought a guy over. I
Oh,
think it was fine when the females were just hanging out, but if a guy came over, that was his territory, and he did not like it.
mm,
Like, "No, this is my home. You cannot bring anyone here that's male." I think that's what was happening. I don't think it was menacing, he was just mad. Like, "There was a
yeah.
guy here, so I have to let y'all know I'm not very happy about it."
I wonder how that works, like, from their point of view. Remember the movie The Others with Nicole Kidman? It was an older movie.
I think it's been too long since I've seen that.
It's like we feel here that when we have those experiences, we're being haunted, but do
Mhm.
they feel haunted too? Because that's really what that was. Or are they like completely aware of us where we're just like a little aware of them? I've often wondered about, you know?
We've invaded their space. Yeah, who
Like, I
knows?
mean, are they able to see us all the time?
I
Think,
have listened to some podcasts about that where
okay.
it could actually be a time loop where there's some sort of merging from the past and the present, and they might see you, the person who's there now, and they're in the past, and they're as surprised as the person in the present, and they suddenly
Uh,
see each other in that scenario. I've heard of stuff like that, but that I don't think that was this case at all. No.
that makes sense. The whole time thing. You hear Darius talk about when Darius did, right? When he's talking to that one guide, Celeste. She's like, this is what time looks like for us. And then she put a deck of cards and you're looking down.
Oh, that's interesting. I always thought of it like a layer cake. Slice open the layer cake, and there's all these layers, and there's all these lifetimes, and we're kind of moving along like people are living their lives. There are all the different layers of the lifetimes, and it's a big layer cake.
Yeah.
I always think of it as a chocolate layer cake.
Oh, it's even better.
With really good chocolate frosting, but that's neither here nor there. But
Yeah.
that's my vision. Nice and rich and chocolatey all our lives. I was once in a haunted house in Salt Lake City, and I've talked about this before, where there was so much poltergeist type action that it was crazy. The lights flew on and off all the time, flickering here and there. I went downstairs to check the breaker box. It was normal. And I looked outside. Nobody else was having problems with their electricity in the neighborhood. It was just that home. Doors were opening by themselves, like the front door, and you could feel this presence like, oh, who's walking in as the door opens really, really slowly. And then the creepy things like that. And books flying out from the walls and hitting what? We were in the den and something was going on. We were just hanging out in the den. This woman, her father was a lawyer. She's like 20 something. So a whole bunch of 20 somethings. And usually the younger they are, the more poltergeist activity.
I was just gonna say that.
Like, especially teenagers, because they
Yeah.
just have this kind of erratic energy. Her dad was a lawyer, so there are these built-in bookshelves with these really big law books, and we were playing with tarot cards in the den. Darlene walked over to this side of me, and all these books flew at her, like about 4 or 5 really big, heavy books. So that's not a trick. That's the stuff's happening. And then she fell on me, and I'm like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "Why are you falling on me?" But books were falling on her. Crazy. I'd been there other times where the stereo, like an actual stereo, would go on by itself, and the record player would start playing, which is remarkable. Yeah.
Huh. One of my questions is gonna be sort of like, I feel like a lot of the physicality of spirit sensations and experiences like that happened more when I was younger. I have experiences, but they're more ethereal.
Mhm,
They're
mhm.
not like closer to the material plane. I remember reading an occult book. I remember it was in the library in high school, and they talked about it was a book on poltergeist, supposedly tied to the rise of sexual energy when you're younger and going through puberty. It's an intense energy, and you're fertile and all those hormones, and it's got to be very kinetic.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. A
Yeah.
lot of energy there. Yeah, at my, friend's house in Nashville, the stereo would go on all by itself sometimes. Once I was hanging out there by myself, I'm like, "Melody." The cereal just went on by itself. And she goes, again, like, oh, that's it. She didn't want that to happen.
My
Yeah.
stepmom had some family friends in Chicago where they had a piano in the basement. The piano would play itself sometimes, like not like a full concert, obviously, but I mean, you would hear ding,
I would,
ding, like little taps of
tinkles.
the,
Wow.
could that have been a mouse?
I don't think a mouse is heavy enough to do that. Maybe a New York rat. Mouse.
Not a Chicago suburban house, but or basement.
And there's also the phenomenon of table tipping, which we talked
Yeah.
about before. Literally, the table moves. It moves backwards, forwards, and around. I mean, that's pretty wild. I have been in the room where people have, well, I've been on the table while we're chasing the
Oh,
table.
wow.
It's pretty amazing.
I've experienced table tipping, huh?
Oh, yes, I have. And back in Utah, many years ago, we were doing a little seance, but this is in the middle of the day, right? It wasn't in a dark room or anything. And we were trying to summon some spirits. And this really heavy table, I mean, big, round, heavy table, not a small, because usually table tipping, it's smaller. It's like maybe 2.5 feet wide, something like that.
Yeah.
This was a big table, heavy, round. It, it almost like it was throwing itself on the woman. It was her home hitting her like right here over and over again. And it was like, okay, this is creepy. But we were doing that typical, like where you're touching hands and you're calling all the spirits. That was a little scary. But that's the first time I'd ever experienced anything like that. That was, yeah. It's like, I don't know if I want to do this. Anyway. But table tipping wasn't scary. But I guess I was a lot older. I don't know. And we weren't sitting. We were actually standing
Oh,
and following it around.
wow. That's pretty cool. That might be too much for me. I don't know if I need the physicality of experiences like that to believe.
So why are we doing this? I mean, yeah, this is pretty freaky. But why? What?
I'll be happy just feeling like a chi ball when you do Tai Chi.
Oh, yeah, right. I'd love that. Yeah, feeling energy. That's cool.
But the only benevolent ghost stories I've lived in too, like, when you live in a place like Chicago, like, you move out to the Southwest, there's just not, things aren't as old here.
Yeah, it's true.
But
Yeah.
when you're back home in Chicago, things are 100 plus years old. She's a police officer. She was a police officer in Chicago, and so she retired. But back then, she worked in a district that was Pullman. Like, it's a really historical neighborhood. Used to be everybody that lived there was part of the railroads. It was a really depressive place. It was during, so we created all these apartments for the workers, but he paid them little wages and they were always struggling. So the people were really miserable. She had this apartment in this area, and I went to stay with her when I was in college. I remember I was watching TV, and then I saw out of the corner of my eye someone at the stove, like stirring something, like, I'm watching TV, and then I kind of like look over, and like, and then all of a sudden I'm like, wait a minute, that was a woman with a bonnet. Like, and she was, and then I'm like, oh my God, because for a second I thought it was my mom. But then I remember my mom wasn't home, and then I registered that was a lady with a bonnet, like a hat.
Very old fashioned.
And then we have this little dog too. She had this little dog, and every time I stayed there, at the same time every night, this little Yorkie would go to the end of the bed and just shake and growl and watch something with its eyes. And I was like, I gotta get out of here. I can't live here.
I saw a ghost once. The first time I saw a ghost was when I sat on a seance. It was my second mediumship class, psychic development mediumship. The second class was a full-on seance. So didn't have time to be scared. Turned out all the lights, and there's about 30 people in the room. I literally saw this woman somewhere in the middle of it, towards the end of the seance. I saw this white, ghostly looking figure walk over, like in the middle of the room, walked through, because it was kind of oblong shaped. So she walked through here and all of a sudden stopped in front of me. And I could tell it was a woman. It was ghostly looking, just exactly like you would see in the movies.
Yeah.
It walked towards me, stopped, put her head on my lap, and started crying. Literally started crying. And I'm like, whoa, okay, this has never happened before. Same time, I also got messages that she was here to talk to the second person over from me. She was really sad and got a message for her. And I was like, I have a message. It was totally just surprising and amazing. And I thought after that, it was the coolest thing on earth. And I wanted to do more. It probably scared me a little, but more surprised and awestruck. And the fact that I got messages too, that was pretty amazing. So that was my first full on ghost. Of course, I've seen a dark spirit also, but that's something else.
Yeah.
We saw a dark spirit in my apartment run through the wall. And I knew there was an entity in that apartment. This was in Brooklyn, old buildings.
Right. There's something to be said about having a newer house. Oh,
Absolutely.
you know.
Yeah. And I saw it, and I had felt it several times and like, there's something here. But then when literally, I was laying down and I felt something was on top of me on my back. And I flipped over and I saw this black, shadowy thing run through the wall. I twirled and told it to get
You swore at it? You swore at it?
I was
Yeah.
like, buddy, get the fuck out of here. You can't do that. I mean, like, literally, I was surprised that I was not afraid. I was mad. And then I did all these ceremonies around getting rid of it, which I had no clue what I was doing, but that was like, nah, you don't belong here. But the thing is, never came back. Whenever I did, it worked.
What are your thoughts about? 'Cause I took a class with Study Don Johnston back in the day. She was sharing if it's benevolent and it's not causing you any problems, like you don't, it's not really like, I know you want to protect yourself from things that are interfering or negative or like menacing, but then like if you're sharing and inhabiting a house with another timeline or spirit, it's not your decision with their karma that it's time to move on. So that's what you was trying to share. If you want to clear them, only clear them because of this, but like they'll go on when it's their time. That's how she saw it. Or they'll ask you for help. I
Huh.
don't know.
Um, I'm not sure how I feel about that, but I think it's interesting. If they're interfering with the energy of the home, they got to go. It depends on their vibration and how high or low their frequency is. If it's a really sad spirit, see if you can get it to go to the light. I've done that with psychopomp, where you talk to a spirit and ask an angel to take that spirit to the light. I have definitely done that before. Yeah, it depends if they're interfering. But if it's a friendly ghost and it doesn't bother you, maybe you can share a space. That I think that's up to the person who lives there.
And then there's, have you ever heard that podcast? She's had some good podcasts. Why Shamanism Now? I think her name was Christine. She shared that part of our wounding as humans is the indigenous people, the people who live close to the earth, knew when there was trouble in the astral level. Here's what you can call it.
Uh-huh.
And they knew they could see the disturbance, they can see the residual energy, and then they would properly move it.
Uh-huh. That makes
They kept their space very clean energetically. So she would say, like, there's some problems for modern people because they're living with these overlays and getting affected by it. It resonated more with that than what Sunny.
that makes a lot of sense. I have had a couple of people lately tell me, and a couple of people come to me for some spiritual mentoring who have suddenly, and they're different ages, but one was younger, like around 21, 22, something like that, where he's suddenly seeing full on visions and seeing dark energies, like how dark the energy is in Vegas,
Oh, wow.
and being able to see it. Always very sensitive to energy, but now suddenly can see it. Trying to figure out what to do about that because it's frightening to have that suddenly turn on. And I have been hearing that happening. So maybe it has something to do with so much psychic energy in the atmosphere that people are opening up. And the magnetics, I think that because the northern lights, that has to do with coming down so far south that what is it that the magnetosphere around the earth? I'm not saying the right word.
Okay.
That it's coming down so low that maybe we're able to see more than we've actually been able to see before. So people really are opening up psychically. Plus, there's a lot of chaos. So there's going to be a lot of psychic noise everywhere.
Well, and there's some theories too of how we're supposedly going to 5D consciousness. Matthias DeStefano and a few other people are like, we don't go straight to 5D. We have to pass through and clean up 4. So That's where a lot of this stuff
Unfortunately.
lives, supposedly.
Oh, yeah, you just can't. That is a rare and exceptional individual that can just suddenly be there.
Right.
Right. Probably something significant happened, like maybe mm, you had to pass, you almost died, near death experience, or yeah, it
Yeah.
doesn't. It's not just like that. I did see
Yeah.
a spirit lift out of a person the other day, and I did a little video about it. I was doing energy healing on somebody,
Uh-huh.
and this was just last week. I literally saw a spirit lift out of her. The thing is, now I've seen stuff lift out of people's bodies before. This was definitely a female spirit, but it didn't feel evil or bad or anything. It was an attachment
Okay.
that somehow got attached to her that I'm sure was not helping her, because you're going to feel somebody else's feelings and emotions. So there is an influence there. I literally saw it lift it, like just lift out, and it was a woman, and it looked very ghostly, and it lifted up and out, and then it just went away. It went off in that direction, and I'm like, okay, guys, help her get to the right place. This is definitely a woman. Um, just an interesting experience. Yeah, that was just last week, and I already heard from her. She said, "Oh, hold on, my cat's fiddling the phone. Sorry, guys."
Ah, your kid's like, "Man."
Exactly. And yeah. So I already heard from her. She feels completely different. Like things
Oh,
have
wow.
just blocked for her in her life. So it could have been other things. It could have been this. It could have been a combination. But she's like something has really opened up for her. So something got it, and something did get up and leave that could have been creating blocks for her. Yeah, it's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I had my banshee story. Did you hear that?
No, I didn't get to watch it yet. The Screaming Banshee? Is that
The
what you
screaming
said?
banshee. Yeah. And it was very neat. Just another weird experience doing an energy healing where I was removing some cords from this woman off of her back,
Uh-huh.
like um, that had come from her mother. I've talked about this woman before, like other stuff from her mother coming off of her body, but this time we're removing some energetic cords. Her mom is not a good person. I'll just put it lightly.
Okay.
Not at all. Wants to do damage in her life, like serious damage. And so she keeps reattaching. And it's
Mhm.
easy for cords to get attached, especially from family members.
A mother,
So
especially, like, yeah.
personally, absolutely. So I'm removing these cords from her back that belong to her mother. Her mother is like, "Nope." And while I was doing this, I saw this energy come flying into the room at me, and it looked like a screaming banshee.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, like this, like trying to be scary and like coming after me. And I'm like, and mostly I was just like, wow, okay, never seen that before. So, and it didn't really scare me, but one of my guides, Black Elk, who suddenly showed up again about a month ago, who's been helping me with more of this more heavy duty kind of stuff that where weird attachments and darker energies. And he showed up and just like, "Yeah, let's just get her out of here." And I'm like, thank you. So, anyway, because literally I was like, I'm not sure what to do with this because
Yeah.
I've never had a screaming banshee like screaming at me. But but what's weird is her mom's alive. Her mom is not in spirit. She is alive.
Mhm.
But I think it's a part of her that is her unconscious. Part of her unconscious or subconscious knew those hooks are being unhooked. And
Oh,
she did try to get as scary as she could, come there to try and stop it. So that darker part of her was coming after me to have that not happen.
I would say, is the mom, like, when you first said that story, is she like, I mean, obviously she's got some sort of like borderline or like,
Well,
she's got, I mean, that was that the first thing I was like, oh, that's like psychopathy. Is that even
um,
a word? Like energetic, like, like,
like a psychopath type of, absolutely. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Not to diagnose anyone, but
well,
yeah, it's that kind of energy.
from the realms. That's what I
Yeah,
mean. That's what it felt like when you were talking about that story. I'm like, oh,
yes,
the mom's got that's the
absolutely.
mental illness and the
Yeah, pretty wild.
mm,
But yeah, that's been showing up a little bit more lately. So, but stuff's getting moved. That that's the good news.
yeah.
So, I saw a ghost once just to shift. I did see a ghost once walking down the street, like in my neighborhood in
Wow.
Brooklyn. Yeah, just walking down it was on First Place in Carroll Gardens. Really beautiful little brownstones gardens with wrought iron fences around it. So I'm walking home and it's at night and there's a guy standing right there. It was a ghost. And he was this really good looking guy, sh- shorter hair, well, a little bit longish. But anyway, it's like, and he was just standing there smiling at me. And I'm walking by with my friend Melanie. And it's like, did you see that guy right there? Yeah. Anyway, just a fun little story. But it was so like, okay, he's right there. But then afterwards, you kind of go, wait, did I really see that?
Did she see him?
No,
Oh,
no.
okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And I did see a Native American one, a Native American guy uh, who was on a horse on a hike in the Catskills at a place called Mount Picayune. And
Okay.
I saw this Indian. I mean, I'm sorry, Native American. That's what we used to say back then.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Please forgive me. Yes, the wrong thing. Native American. He was in full, like, he had this little breast thing on. He was on the horse. He wasn't a chief. He didn't have like the full headdress on, but there was definitely something there with some feathers. And, and he had some sort of, like a spear or something. And I saw him several times. He was watching us. Like, some one point I saw him and it's like, and he looked as real as you do, like
Okay.
that kind of vision.
Wow.
He was just on his horse, and then we hiked a little further, and he was there again, and then we hiked a little further, and he was there again. It was like, and he knew I could see him. Like, he we were watching each other. I don't know why, but it was definitely a Native American spirit. He was hanging out with us.
I wonder if there was like some, you know how they call on spirits to watch over the land or like their burial grounds too. Maybe
Mhm.
you guys were close to something.
Maybe because at some point, one of the members of this group suddenly got super sick, like collapsed down to the ground
Wow.
and was holding his gut and like something really bizarre happened to him. And it was strange. So it was just a really strange
Wow.
hike. And then we got up to the top of the mountain and we stayed a little too long. So by the time we were coming back down, it was getting dark and there was no lights. We didn't have flashlights.
Oh,
So we walked super fast. But this wild, like, rhythm started happening with all the sounds of the forest and the mountains that it was like, it was just a magical hike. I mean, yeah, it was like the sound from all of the crickets and the night noises of the animals. And we were walking in rhythm with the rhythm that was happening there naturally, and it was just really cool. But we knew it was like, just stay directed. We got to get there because it's super dark and we can't see anything. But
yeah.
anyway, it had a magical quality the whole hike. Yeah, Mount Picayune, the Catskills.
Huh.
Yeah, yeah,
That's a cool experience.
yeah, yes. And to segue, we actually went in the Catskills once again. We hiked barefoot. This guy told us to hike barefoot, who was
Uh-huh.
tour guide. Anyway, and it felt very magical. Another magical, like, because something happened hiking barefoot. And he told us nobody's going to get hurt. Your feet are going to be fine. Well, someone almost fell and really hurt themselves. So he said, if y'all took your shoes, you'll be fine. So we
Uh-huh.
all took our shoes off and we hiked. And it was, again, this magical experience. And we hiked to this creek with this waterfall. And I swear you could hear angels singing there. So
Oh
it was
wow.
this beautiful experience.
That's
Yeah.
really cool.
Anyway, off that's not spooky at all.
No, that was really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. It was literally, I was sitting on a log in the middle of this creek where there's this waterfall here. And I just laid there. It's like, oh my God, I hear angels singing all around us. This is phenomenal. And everyone's like, Lorina, be careful over there. And I'm like, no, oh no, I am fine.
Nothing's going to happen here.
I'm really good. Anyway,
We have
before you
about 2 minutes left, just to give you a
okay.
heads up.
Okay. So, you got anything else to share? Any cool?
No, I think I shared.
Okay. Well, it's a fun time of year. The veils
Yeah.
are thinner this time of year, and that's why we're doing a little spooky chat. So, yeah. And I think it's true that, um, there is something about that magnetic field of the earth is kind of loosening up. So pay attention, watch for your visions, feelings. You might be tapping in and you don't even know it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a good time to tap in.
Yes.
Yeah. And to connect with your spirit guides first if you're afraid. They will help you.
Yes, for sure.
Always.
Dia de los Muertos is coming up too, so you can call in your ancestors too.
Yes, absolutely. Call on your ancestors. They're here to help. You might have some visitations from some loved ones from the other side. Yeah. All right. I think that's it. This is a fast one. Okay.
Yep.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. Like, comment, subscribe.
Thank you.
Like and subscribe for additional crypto intuitive readings, global predictions, and intuitive development education. If you would like a private reading with Kimmie or Lorina, please find our individual websites listed below. Please remember this information is for entertainment purposes only and should never be considered as professional financial advice.